Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I'm going to translate a post or two from a Finnish image board. Note: not my posts originally. Be a non around age 7. Share a room with my older brother, age 9. Brother has always been able to see and sense ghosts etc. both reading Donald Duck magazines at 9 p.m. in our beds with only small reading lights on that are attached to the beds. Suddenly brother freezes up and drops the magazine. Look over to see what's wrong with him. Brother has a terrified look on his face. He keeps staring at a dark corner in the room next to the clothing closet. Wonder what's up with him. Brother says that it is staring. Get a little confused and spooked. A tear drops on my brother's cheek and he looks like he's about to lose it. At this point I'm scared too, though I can't see anything. Brother starts yelling at whatever he sees to not get closer and he starts crying. Scared shitless by this point and start crying as well. Brother screaming bloody murder. Mom rushes into the room and we both spring up and run to her while still crying. Mom takes us out of the room. Hear the closet door creaking and closing. Mom asks if someone's there. No answer. Here's another one by the same Anon. A year or two later at a family cabin. Me, brother, mom and grandma have dinner and talk about stuff. Reminiscence about the relatives that have been there with you and the stuff you've done together. Brother asks if our uncle will be coming as well. Grandma says that not this time. Evening sauna and fry some sausages. After eating, get ready for bed. The cabin has 2 so-called sleeping granaries, both with space for 2. Me and my brother sleep in the other and mom and grandma sleep in the other. Me and my brother play a few rounds of African tati. After that we're off to sleep. Fall asleep immediately. Wake up to the sound of creaking floorboards as my brother gets up from bed. Think he's just going to take a piss. He walks up to the window. Get curious as to why he would do this. He's just standing there and peeking through the window towards the cabin's road. He then says that uncle is coming after all. Wonder how that's possible since it's the middle of the night. Ask him if he's sure. Brother says it's another uncle who was in the forest earlier. At this point I get up from bed to have a look at myself. Can't see shit, it's pretty dark. Brother suddenly pulls the curtain in front of the window and says that we can't let this uncle see inside. Brother grabs the door handle and says we can't let him inside. What the fuck? Brother grabs the door frame hard and pulls on the handle to keep it closed and starts yelling for it to go away. Pretty fucking scared at this point. Notice a swampy animalistic stench in the air. Brother screams for help and I go pull on the handle too. At this point I'm not even sure if anything's actually trying to open the door or not. Brother is in full panic and yells for it to stop following us as we pull the handle. The kind of smell that comes from a wet animal is extremely strong at this point. I remember it well because I've smelt it a few times later in life as well. Paralyzed by fear by now, can't even talk. I notice the door latch isn't closed and quickly snap out of it and lock the latch up. Brother, let's go off the door and take a couple steps back. That uncle will be waiting there. Finally get some stuttering words out of my mouth and ask what he's waiting for. Brother has tears in his eyes and says it's right behind the door. Both start screaming as loud as possible and bang on the walls so mom and grandma wake up. This panic lasts for a few minutes at least and my brother tells me to not look into the windows. Grandma wakes up to this eventually and then wakes mom up. A sense of easiness started to fall on me as soon as I saw the gleam of the flashlight and heard grandma yelling if everything was okay. We checked the yard with the flashlight and I remember well how mom and grandma also commented on the smell. However, we couldn't find anything. We spent the rest of the night in the same granary as mom and grandma and tried to explain what happened, but they thought we made it up or that it might have just been some raccoon dog. Didn't get a single second of sleep for the rest of the night. Kinda left me with some trauma towards cabins and other hinterlands, backwoods areas and such. Translation's not perfect and I had to take some liberties with words that don't translate well from Finnish. Found more by a different Finnish anon in a different thread. Be anon who's interested in urban exploration. Find an abandoned house through online searching, it's pretty large. Get excited and go check it out the next day. Get there, the house is absolutely massive. The grass has grown to savanna levels and everything looks like time had stopped in the 1800s. It's a nice summer day, so look around the yard and take some scenic photos. Decide to check out the barn. Barn has some old horse-powered farming equipment and really fucking old tools laying around. There's some old potato sacks that I'll leave alone because of possible rats and old rotten vegetables. Barn has been checked, so it's time to check out the house. As you might imagine, the house is just filled with dust, worthless garbage and rusty pans. Found another potato sack similar to the one in the barn with a mild stench of shit, so I left that sack alone as well. Upstairs I found a diary but couldn't make any sense of the writing. Also 2 more potato sacks. Wonder why there's so many potato sacks around the place. Figure it must have been a huge family in here back in the day. Walk back downstairs and take a couple more pics. Just as I decide to leave, I see something that made me shit bricks and got all my body hair standing up. You're now being stared at by a 2-meter tall upright standing potato sack. Frozen in place until that fucking sack monster starts to move itself towards me with a heavy dragging sound accompanying it. Sprint the fuck out of there and get into the car. Hear some moaning still coming from the house as I try to start the car. Nope. Speed myself home as fast as the car lets me and never approach that hell's house again. Get spooked by the thought that those sacks were all over the fucking place and I spent a long time there without a care in the world.
As we are on X, I believe you guys wish to hear some creepy stories. This was told to me by my father when I was young. My father is from Kainuu, one of the most sparsely populated and remote parts of Finland where the old beliefs persisted well into the 20th century. Be a girl in the 19th century. Be walking home from a local dance. The woods are dark and silent with no soul to be heard. The girl picks up her pace as a flicker through the trees catches her eyes. A green fire lit between some high rocks. She instantly recognizes this as a will-o-wisp. During the War of Greater Wrath, the people fled the Russian invaders into the woods, leaving their valuables buried in the ground. To protect the treasure, spirits were summoned that would present themselves as ghastly fires. She rushes to the fire and starts digging. She digs and digs but can't find any treasure. At this point she's neck deep into the ground. Suddenly a voice booms from underground. 7 feet deeper, 7 feet under, 7 lives from the taker and 7 for the guarder. Rough translation. She comes to the grim realization. A sacrifice must be made in order to gain the treasure. She's been digging a grave. She hops out of the pit and bolts home. She glances behind her and sees the fire erupting and then going out. No treasure was ever found on the spot and the will-o-wisp wasn't seen again.
As Joulupuki lives on Korvatunturi, in Lapland, allow us to venture our way up into the north. Much of northern Fennoscandia, including Finland, was inhabited by Sami, who are distant relatives of Finnic peoples, part of Finno-Ugric peoples. The Sami were nomads, reindeer herders and hunter-gatherers that were pushed farther north by other Nordic settlers along the centuries. The Sami have a distinct culture and they were seen as mysterious shamans and seers dating back from the Viking ages. The vast wilderness of the north is a mythical place in folklore, inhabited by magic, spirits and mythical creatures. My father actually has a story from Lapland that is very characteristic of the stories told about the region. Be my dad. On a fishing trip in Lapland. Day is incredibly hot and dry, the banks are filled with fishers, with no luck whatsoever. Everyone is tired and frustrated. All of a sudden a small man clad in strange clothing appears. The man doesn't say a word, he grabs his rod and whips the bait in the water. Not a minute passes until the man pulls out an enormous salmon. Everyone around is astonished and a crowd gathers around the man. The people bombard him with questions, but he doesn't answer, he just smiles politely. Dad's friend pulls up a camera and snaps a picture of the strange little man and his fish. The friend takes the film to be developed. You probably guess what happens now? The man is nowhere to be seen. Lapland used to be, at least from the Finnish perspective, shrouded in mysticism and fearful respect, regarded as an untamed wilderness. I can't say for sure if all the magic has been sapped from Lapland, but my fishing trips have convinced me of its mesmerizing beauty. Pick-related is an ancient, holy site of the Sami people. Entry to the island is prohibited.
Nukku-Matti, Sleepy Matthew is an ancient Finnish being who associates with children and their dreams most of the time. He lives in a golden forest, full of golden trees with bluebirds who have golden beaks. He has a blue book of dreams and his mission is to catalog each and every dream of children who still can innocently dream. He is not immortal, the profession must be passed on, though the current Nukku-Matti has been on the job for the last 5,000 years. He can only appear when all the lights are off and children's eyes are closed, mouths shut. He makes no sound when sneaking, and when he travels with the kids to their dreams, he records every last thing about them.
Metsänpeitto, lit. Forest cover, is a phenomenon found in Finnish folklore. It was used to describe people or domestic animals who went missing in nature for unexplained reasons. People, covered by forest, were described as not being able to recognize the terrain around them, even if they were on familiar grounds. In other cases they might have walked endlessly through unfamiliar terrain, or were rendered completely paralyzed, unable to move or speak. Unnatural silence, devoid of the sounds of nature, was also common. People or animals under the influence of the phenomenon were described as becoming either completely invisible to other people, or looking like part of the nature around them, like a rock. In one story a man had been looking for a missing cow for days. When he finally gave up and returned to his work, the first tree stump he struck with his axe transformed back into his cow. The cause behind Metsänpeitto was usually credited to Mahinans, who were small humanoid creatures living underground, usually translated as gnomes. Some people managed to free themselves from Metsänpeitto by their own means, for example by turning their jacket inside out, by switching their shoes to the wrong feet, or by looking between their own legs. This was because of the idea that everything was topsy-turvy in the lands of the Mahinans. Some were released seemingly without reason, others only after being sought after by a shaman. Some were never seen again.
True, nothing X about it, and can be verified if there's any other Finns lurking around. Or anyone who can read Finnish. Small town in southern Finland, early 2000. Me staggering home from a bar, quite hammered. Time is something around 2:30 a.m., since I left after the last call. Approaching traffic lights, I see a teenage girl. She's standing at edge of the street, near a fenced, empty lot overgrown with bushes. Not a Minecraft streamer, so don't give a fuck. Yet glance at her while, for some reason, waiting for the light to change. She's looking kinda anxious, like she's working up the nerve to speak to me. Me being a huge monster. Sporting the stereotypical, scary biker gear, including long hair and beard. I realize I might be a somewhat unnerving sight. Yet my mom always told me to be kind to girls. Remembering that I think maybe she's in trouble or something. I go, "Sup?" with my kindest, softest voice. She draws breath as she starts to speak. Then just turns around and walks to the lot without a word. I shrug, and continue on my way home. Bit WTF, I look back after 100 yards. I see her standing back where I first saw her. WTF some more, and walked home. Next Monday, top story of the local newspapers was a story of 3 teenagers' axe-murdering spree. 17 and 15-year-old boys and a 15-year-old girl had killed 2 people, 3rd victim survived. First body was found across town, second at 3 a.m. from the lot where I saw the girl go to. Felt a bit uncomfortable after reading that.
Finn friend here. I have a pretty funny story to tell. Once when I was in Lapland, it was in autumn I think. I managed to get myself into a really creepy situation. I was still in elementary school, so this incident was fucking terrifying to me. So, I was playing in the woods with my brother. And before we even noticed it was dark as hell already. It's always dark in Finland. We decided to head back to our cottage. So, on the way back to the cottage, we had to cross this highway. When we were going to the forest, I noticed this cool abandoned underpass thingy, but we did not use it that time. So we decided to give it a go. About middle of the underpass, we noticed something moving on both sides of the wall. It was freaking wide and dark underpass, we only saw the light in the other end. Then something walks straight before us. It's a fucking reindeer. After that we realized that the tunnel is fucking full of reindeers laying next to the tunnel's walls. All those 4-hoofed fuckers were silently watching while me and my brother sneaked back to where we came. Animals are fucking spooky.
B9. My mom sent me to a week-long summer camp every summer to make friends. The summer camp is located somewhere in the woods in Finland. I'll try to find pics for you people. It consists of 3 buildings that are over 100 years old. The main one where we spent a few hours of the day. The barracks where we slept boys and girls in different sections. And the bathhouse which was bit away from the other 2 buildings in the end of small gravel path. First day went normally, made some friends. Second night we asked one of the leaders to tell us his stories. He tells us horror stories about the barracks. The barracks had a cellar where they used to store potatoes when the building was new. He told us that the original owner's daughter died in the cellar. Everybody acts cool.jpg. He leaves and we start talking about the cellar and we decide that one of us goes to the cellar which was restricted area. I was the one. Next night, I say that I need to use the bathroom. They let me go to the bathroom. I walk behind the barracks. Opened the doors to the cellar, they look like generic wooden tornado shelter doors. I go down the stairs. It's so fucking dark.png. It takes a while for my eyes to get used to the darkness. The door slams shut. I was scared shitless and tried to scream for help but I couldn't. Can't push the door open but it's stuck. Decide to look at what's in the cellar. Just ropes, bags and more bags. Here's something. Can't see anything moving. There must be something in here, there must be, I can hear it. Back into the corner. The voices start sounding like whispers. Silence. The camp leaders start searching for me. After a while one of the other boys told them that I was in the cellar. They come and get me out of the cellar and ask how I got there when there was a lock in the door and bricks on top of it. I spent around 15 minutes in the cellar.
Here in Finland, we have a much more stories during our war with Russia. So I'll just greentext them. Finland 1944. War was raging. Young woman who was working as Lotta, a woman who was working as a nurse or chef during the war. Woman fell in love with a Russian soldier. During war they send each other letters. Letter wouldn't reach them because of war. After war she gets all the letters. But no word from his lover was heard. She kept waiting for him. But he never came. Eventually a woman died and then shit started to happen. Woman was seen in the window looking and waiting for her lover. She didn't have eyes. This ghost was really weird because you'd think that these sights happened in the night. Nope. Mostly it happened around 12 a.m. People got very nervous. They bricked up the window she was seen. Years later, they tried to do some work around the house. Letters taken away from the house. Hell break loose. Nobody could work there. Letters were returned. Workers didn't. This is an actual story that old people tell here in Finland, and I happen to live in a town where this exact house in the middle of the city is. I have seen a bricked-up window with some boards nailed into it. But just 3 years ago they completely restored the house and some moving company rented that place as their office or something. I was freaked out when I heard this because I've been walking past that window hundreds of times, because road beside it leads to a town school.
Ooh, I love these kinds of local stories. Got any more?
Yeah, actually I do. Finland, God knows when. My hometown, Tornio. Local madman, also known as a shaman or witch, Isak Pistakowski. Healer, fortune teller, drunkard. Cured children stuttering by spooking them out of their minds. Does many weird stuff, and here starts spooky part. Once when townspeople gathered into a church, Isak Pistakowski crashed in the middle of a crowd driving a huge sleigh. No horses to pull that sleigh. Started to preach against God. Got arrested if I remember correctly. Dark winter, as 97% of Finland seasons are. Drinking with his friend. Friend wants a lift home. Isak Pistakowski took out a huge snow shovel. Said that his friend should sit in it and close his eyes, never to open them or he'll be damned for the rest of his life. His friend sits on the shovel and closes his eyes. Some people who witnessed this act said that old devil himself too that drunk man home. Many other freaky things happen. And you know what is the best part? Isak's sleigh is still here, presented at our local town museum. Also his grave can be found at our old, Alatornian, church's graveyard. Of course legends tell that if you went to his grave and circle it 10 times, Isak Pistakowski will appear to you. It's pretty spoopy when it's clear as day that this man actually existed and did something that his cursed tale is still told around here. Kinda like Jesus, but more like his drunkard cousin or something.
Be 18-year-old. Be staying at your grandparents' old farmhouse or mansion. For you Americans out there, pick related. That's it. House is huge wooden structure in rural northwestern Finland, south of Kokkola, Swedish-speaking part of Finland. Built by an old Freemason part of the family, which is a story in and of itself. Many of my family have died in this house, Grandpa's parents and Grandpa's grandfather and probably grandmother's mother. At night it's creaking and shit. When wind is blowing, all sorts of noises are heard around the house. Mind you, this farm is isolated as fuck. The closest neighbor is a kilometer away. Have to know where you're going to ever come close to the area. Back to the story. It's a summer night and I'm staying over for the summer as I usually do. Grandparents and I are the only ones in the house. They go to bed at 22 hours sharp in order to get up at 6 to eat rye porridge and milk the cows. Me being a slob teenager who grew up in the city, like to stay up late watching murder mysteries and the likes on TV. Stay until about 2 o'clock until I decide to turn in for the night. The TV room, kitchen, living room and such are all on the bottom floor. Bedrooms are on the top floor. To get to the bedroom you need to go up a steep, narrow, dark, creaking wooden staircase. I habitually stop before the second last staircase because I know it creaks extra loud. Before taking the long step over the last staircases I look up. Before me is the door to my room, left is the closet door. Closet door is slightly open. As I look at it, the closet door closes itself. I know what my goddamn eyes saw, and that was not natural movement. I go completely ice cold and quickly walk into the room and go to bed. Next morning I play with and carefully test the closet door. It's heavy wooden and 100 years old. You need force to push it shut. There is no way that thing can just slide shut by itself. The lumpiest part is that I felt something watching me when it closed, a presence. Many years later, last summer, 17. Never talked to anyone about my encounter. Tell myself I was just seeing things. Press it into the back of my mind, though I always knew what I saw was real, just couldn't deal with it. Younger cousin bro talks to me about a scary story that's been bothering him. He sleeps in my room, which is technically my dad and uncle's, cousin bro's dad, old childhood room. Outside of the room is an old training bike, the kind from the 70s where the wheels are just metal plates to make it harder to pedal and make it more aerobic. All the kids like to play on it. Hell, I did it too when I was little. The familiar cha-chung 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 sound as the heavy metal plate wheels spin is unmistakable. Count Sinbro was asleep in his bed in the room late at night when he hears it. Cha-chung cha-chung cha-chung. It's 2 in the fucking morning, everyone's asleep. It's only him and our grandparents in the house. I guess the kid, he was like 14 or 15 when this happened, IDK. Just assumed it was a joke or something, because the next morning when he goes down for our routine rye porridge he jokingly asks Grandma, "Grandma, why were you up so late cycling?" She looks at him, "What the heck are you talking about, son? Now eat your porridge before it gets cold," the shit she always says. He then realized just how nonsensical his question had been and the panic set in. Fun fact, closet door I saw is right next to this training bike. My family is not good at interior decoration, I suppose. My cousin and I are very spooked at this point, sharing our stories for the first time with each other. Me being familiar, ex-lurker, having some calm and feel I can deal with the spirits of my dead ancestors, while my younger cousin is flipping his shit. After a while of discussing it, my uncle, his dad, walks in on us. Cousin frantically explains everything to him and asks if the house is haunted. Uncle sits down and listens, does not make any face betraying what he thinks. Now my uncle, like most men in the family, is very easygoing and level-headed, who likes to act as a calming part in the conversation and never add to, often female, hysteria. Imagine my surprise when he breaks character and instead of telling us boys to stop believing in silly ghost stories, he starts telling us of his own experience. He was younger, back when he was still living there, in the 80s, sitting in the living room reading a book. Living room is situated directly below my room, with a creepy closet and a ghost bike. More specifically, the old black bookcase in the corner of the living room is situated directly below said things. If you've ever been in one of these old big houses in the middle of the day, you know how quiet and peaceful these places can get. Drop a needle and it will sound like smashing glass. When he looked up from his book, he looked at the black bookshelf. Big handcrafted ancient furniture, where we keep the family Bible, etc. There are locked drawers on the lower part of it. Key is left in one of the locked drawers' keyhole. My uncle swears to God he saw that key turn 360 degrees around by itself. He could hear the metallic movement as it turned 5 fucking meters in front of him, unlocking the drawer. He calmly puts book down and NOPEs the fuck out of there. He ain't no American teenager in a horror movie going all Scooby-Doo to investigate. I haven't been back there since, but I'm going back this summer. Now 99% of all nights spent there are without any paranormal happenings, but I know just me thinking about it will have an effect. I am not gonna touch an Luigi board there because fuck knows what's gonna happen, and I'll end up bringing some dark spirits into the room me and my cousins are forced to sleep in every so often. Ain't happening. Me and cousin bro tried to confront Grandpa in a not so smooth way by asking straight out if house was haunted. Knowing Grandpa's body language, he did not sound very convincing, saying no and telling us those things are just silly. The man has been living every day of his life in that house, with little exception, since like the summer of 1960 or something. If we have seen something in the relatively few nights, he has to know something. Since I was talking to a friend of mine about my family's experiences, she shared some of hers, also in Finland.
Family house is haunted. See things move that shouldn't be possible too. Greatly spook one of the most atheist peoples on earth. Shake them to the core of their fedoras. Scientist man is part of the family and has seen some shit there. His betrothed is using the bathroom at night when she hears someone walking through the corridor, back and forth, no footsteps though. Just hearing the voice of someone humming a tune like, la da da hum hum hum, voice is female but, it does not sound like anyone she knows. Bursts out through the door, no one is there. Asked around, grandparents, fiancé, and they were all at the opposite side of the house. Here's the kicker that makes it nightmare fuel. One night the man of the house, which I suppose was a scientist man's dad, sees a woman standing at the end of the corridor. She's has no color as in white and black. Dad does what any Finnish man would do in that situation and punches a ghost woman intruder. Hand goes right fucking through her and into wall. Leaves hole in the wall. Next day, they start investigating. Go through the old family photo album. There she is. Dad recognizes the ghost woman immediately when he sees a photo of her. It's uncanny. She was a distant relative who, according to text in the album, died there in her early 20s from tuberculosis. To this day there is a hole in the wall from his punch. They don't like to talk about it but don't shy away from sharing their experience either. Scientist man has a materialist worldview shaken to the core, thinking about all that happened during the drive home. Now thinks twice before tipping his fedora.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentexts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Oh